All right. So, welcome into module three. In this module, I'm just going to be taking you through basically step by step on how to wholesale virtually, right? When I say virtually, I more so mean remotely. A lot of people, I'm not talking about, I'm not, the, I don't, I'm not against it. I'm not the biggest fan of wholesaling, like virtually, I guess you could say, because I feel like having connections with people, it helps you close a lot easier, especially when you're new, right? So I don't tell people who are like new to try and wholesale virtually. I would always say um, try and wholesale like in your area first, and then once you're comfortable wholesaling, then expand out. But that being said, when you are comfortable wholesaling virtually or just remotely is a lot easier, and it's a great way to make money, right? So I just want to like set that there because I know before I've said in the past like wholesaling virtually isn't that great. It's not that it's not that great. It's just really hard to do if you're like it's harder beginner because your phone selling skills have to be like on par. But when you're in person, you get somebody to like you. It's a little bit easier, right? So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you step by step what you can do to wholesale virtually using PropStream. So big, obviously, so right here you see the whole map of you can zoom out, you can see the whole map of the world. In this situation, so I live in Connecticut, right? So excuse me. So say I wanted to go start wholesaling in a different state. Maybe I pick Florida. And I'm picking Florida because we're also in Florida's market. So say I wanted to do Saint. Actually, no. Let's do Orlando. Orlando, Florida. Right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to Orlando, and you're gonna see in Orlando by itself, there's 335,000 properties that are just like single families or multifamilies that are that are available, technically speaking, available in Orlando. When I say available, that means doesn't mean they're on the market. There's all the houses that are like that fit that residential category in PropStream, right? So if you see up here, you see 7,000 of these have been listed or are listed like recently, I guess you could say, because I know PropStream, there's mostly about 7,000 houses on the market right now, but there's 7,000 listings or past listings or 7,000 things that are under contract currently. So either on the market, under contract, or pending close. So, and you got 1,700 pre-foreclosures. You have 63 houses that are going to auctions. You have 339 houses owned by the bank. You have 67,000 cash buyers. So what does that mean? So having the ability to access cash buyers is powerful because obviously if you're trying to wholesale in a market, having the ability to trace people who will purchase property cash is huge. So yeah, so being able to find people who will pay for property cash is going to help you wholesale in any market, right? So after clicking cash buyers, you see here that there are sorry, keep bearing with me here. So you'll see there's 67,000 people who have purchased house cash. So what you can do hypothetically is you can add these to a list. And if it depends on your PropStream plan, you can only add a certain amount of properties at a time. But so say you want to try calling 5,000 of these people, you can add them to a list and then you can skip trace them and call them because if they purchase all these properties for cash, more than likely that there's going to be some of them that are investors looking to purchase more properties, right? So cash buyers is a very powerful tool. There's 60, there's 9,000 liens, give or take. So properties that have liens on, whether they're tax liens, water liens. There's 9,000 properties that have debt on them that's outstanding. It hasn't been paid. So those are great ones to call. There's over 6,000 that are vacant. So that means that there's nobody living in the property. And there's probably over 100,000 that have a lot of equity. So there's 261,000 of these properties that have a boatload of equity. And what does that mean? If somebody has a lot of equity, they might be more willing to cash in rather than somebody who like bought a house 2-3 years ago, or maybe it's going to shit, but they still don't want to sell it. It's having somebody with high equity, they're more likely to want to sell just because the fact that they have the equity and would most likely be willing to cash in on that equity, I guess you could say. So it's always good to find people who have a lot of equity in their property, and especially if they have a lot of equity and they have liens on it, or maybe if they have equity and they're going to pre-foreclosure, it makes it a lot easier for you to make them an offer that works because then you have the equity to then find a buyer, for them have the buyer do the renovations, and then close on that property for you to still make a good amount of money. So how do you go about finding sellers, right? So what you can do, so in this video, we're targeting Orlando, Florida, right? And this is quick filters you can sort by. So say I wanted to come into here and I want to build a brand new list. So as you can see here, you got 335,000 properties. These are all just pre filters, right? So you can search by any of these. You can do tired landlords. Tired landlords are people that have been landlords for a long time. You could do people who are getting divorced if that's your thing. If you want to target those people, because obviously if they're getting divorced, then realistically they're probably going to be selling the house pretty soon. Free and clear, that means people own the property outright. This is great for seller finance properties, right? So if somebody owns a property with no mortgage and no debts, it can be seller financed very easily. So kind of back when we said in module 1 or 2, whichever one it was, I think it was module 2, if you structure a creative deal, like a seller finance deal with somebody, and then you sell those terms with to a buyer. So you structure a seller finance deal with the seller, and then you can then assign those terms to a buyer for your fee. So free and clear properties are great ways to negotiate seller finance terms with a seller, and then sell those terms to a buyer. Because a lot of investors, if they're paying for a deal seller finance, and they just have to pay the entry fee, then they just pay the seller monthly, they are more likely to pay for a property that's retail or even a little bit over retail value. So there's 167,000 of these. So if I were trying to get these type of deals in Florida, what I would do, or just in Orlando, I would literally get this into a dialer, and I would cold call all these leads every single day as much as I can. Or I'd bring in a VA, like a virtual assistant, and I'd have them cold calling for me at least 8 hours a day just to see if there is any interest in selling. And if somebody just does want to sell, I would pitch them the seller finance route to see if I could then get it under contract seller finance, and then dispo those terms to a buyer. And pro tip, if you find like multifamilies, it's a lot more lucrative than just a single family. I wouldn't try and seller finance a single family home because I wouldn't try and assign seller financing for a single family home, because unless your assignment's very, very cheap, usually it's not the most attractive thing for a buyer, because they're paying the entry fee plus your fee, and just the cash return that someone's going to get from a multifamily just isn't going to be worth it. From a single family, this is going to be worth it. So I would always recommend trying to sort this by like multifamilies, right? And you can do that coming down here. You can do, I gotta see. There's a way to sort it directly by like the structure of the house. Let's see. Number of units. So I would do like a number of like 2 units minimum, right? And then it would populate over here. This is gonna take its time for this example, but you could do like say 2 units with a maximum of 5 units. And then over here, all of your multifamilies are going to populate, right? So all your multifamilies that are duplexes, triplexes, 4 families, or 5 units are going to populate right over here. Again, you can pick any niche, right? So you can do tired landlords, you can wholesale land if you want. You can do high equity, pre-foreclosures, foreclosures. You can pick anything you want, right? But let's just build like a custom list. So say I only want to do single families. So I'll go over here, I'll click single family. Say I'm looking to do a single family high equity list, right? Or a high equity poor condition list. So I will go over here. I'd say overall condition poor. And then I would go over to equity, and I would say I want them to have at least $50,000 worth of equity. And then you see here, there's 7,600 people who have. It's a single family. The house is pretty crappy. It's in poor condition, and let's see. So you have it in poor condition, and then you have at least $50,000 worth of equity, right? So what this means is now you have a targeted list. So all these people in this in these category have a house that they have equity in, but it's in shitty condition, right? So there's a chance that they'd be interested in taking a cash offer, and just walking away from the property and calling it a day. Now, say I were to say, okay, you know what? Instead, I want to look for multifamilies instead. So instead of going over here, I can say, instead of doing that, I want to now do multifamilies 2 to 4 units. So I have buyers who are looking in that area, or I know that maybe I have a buyer who's looking to pick up a bunch of properties and they don't want to pay retail, but they want something creatively. This is how you build a creative list. So say I go to 2 to 4 units, or maybe I could do multifamilies as well, just like 5+ units. And then you're going to go down to here and you're going to do estimated equity $100,000 if you can. And so now you have somebody who has a boatload of equity in their property. Let's see if I can go even further. 150 grand. Perfect. Now you have somebody who has a lot of equity in their multifamily property, and they might be willing to sell it, right? There's another way you can do free and clear. I think there's a way to do it without, let me see here. Bear with me. Mortgage info 0. There you go. So these are all houses that are completely paid off. So if there's no mortgage, that means there's no debt on the property. So these houses are all completely paid off. So you got 2,000 people now that would be most likely open to seller financing a property, because they don't own anything on it, and they might be looking to sell it. Maybe they don't want to pay capital gains or something like that. So it just gives you the ability to maybe structure a creative offer and then assign those terms over to somebody. So now you know how to pull a list, no matter what that list may be. And we're gonna train on this. We're gonna do other sales meetings where we go over how to pull lists, target lists. So if you have any lists that you want to see pulled, I will help you do that live. But so say you found a list and you now know what you want, and say this is targeted, whatever it is. And now you're like, okay, now what do I do to pull the list? So if you're pulling all of them, you click that. But for example, I'm just going to pull one, and you're going to click add to list, and you're going to say create new list. And this is going to be test list for REU. So right here, I just added one single lead, because you only get a certain amount of saves per billing cycle. And then I'm going to go over to here, and I'm going to go to my properties, and I'm going to go to test list for REU. So as you see, the lead that I have right here, you need to skip trace it. I don't recommend PropStream skip tracing. It's not that great. If you are going to skip trace, use Kind skip tracing, and I will link that below. I'll also show you how to use Kind skip tracing in the same video. But yeah, so I would not use PropStream for skip tracing. They're really great for finding data and finding like information about a property. But for actually skip tracing, getting the best information, Kind skip tracing is a lot better at finding accurate data. But what I would do is I would click all my leads, and then I would go to export, and then I would export those. As you see, I don't know if you see my screen, but it's saved up here. And now that it's saved, I'm going to take you over to KindSkip, and I'm going to show you how to add those into a skip tracing list. So stay tuned. All right. So for some reason, KindSkip doesn't let me show my face, but basically, as you see here, this is the Kind skip tracing dashboard. What you would do is with KindSkip, you have to have a minimum order of $300. But $300 gets you, I think, 10,000 skips, and that's extremely powerful. So it's 3 cents a skip, which is arguably some of the cheapest in the industry, and it gives you a lot of skips to work with. So if you have the investment to do it, I would do it. Just spend the $300, get $10,000 worth of credits, and it will allow you to just skip trace a bunch of leads and add them into a dialer. But so basically, when we're here, what I would do is, so I already have a list, right? This is a list that I pulled from I came to PropStream. I would go to submit a list. I would go over here. I would slap it right there, and then I would input all this information. This is usually all right, so you can just click proceed. I'm not going to suppress anything, and then I'm going to do REU test list. And what would happen here is it would, as you see, price per record is 3 cents a record. I'm using one of my credits. So if I bought a fresh thing of 10,000 credits, this would say 10,000. And obviously, if you're say you're pulling 6,000 leads, it would only use 6,000 credits, right? I'm not gonna go through with this, but this is just an example. And as soon as you finish, you would then wait. Hold on. Can I get out of that? I think I gotta. Well, I don't think I can click out. That's so sad. Anyways, but after you wrap up this, the list will get emailed to you with whatever email that you created on a file. You'll get it emailed to you, and then you can drop it into your dialer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you our dialer, how to add a list into it. That way you can use it and hopefully start calling some leads. So bear with me. I will take you right over to smartphone. All right. So, last but not least, we're heading over to smartphone. And I apologize, this video's been all over the place. But so we went from PropStream to pull our list. We went from KindSkip to skip trace to leads, and now we're going to smartphone, which is my preferred dialer, to utilize that so you can start calling people in here. So what I would do is, so this is a smartphone dashboard. You can use any dialer you like. I personally like smartphone. I've used a bunch of dialers with my time in the industry, and I found that smartphone works the best. That's just me, right? You could use batch dialers. You could use Mojo dialer. You could use Ready Mode dialer, Zen dialer. Which no, I think Zen got bought by Ready Mode. You could use there's a million of them, right? But I prefer smartphone. I think it works really well, and it has the best call connect rate that I've experienced. So what I would do is I go right over to Smart Dialer. I would then create a new campaign, and it's going to call RAU test. I select the caller IDs, which means they just this is a predictive dialer. So what it means is you call from different numbers, and it hangs up whenever somebody picks up without spamming them. That way, you doesn't look at the same number as spamming different people all the time. I'd add my callback in there. I do the number of lines. This means how many lines are calling at the same time. It doesn't, don't get confused. It doesn't call the same person 4 times in a row or 4 different times. It's calling multiple different like numbers at once, and it's going to allow you to call all the people's numbers from a different number, I guess you could say. And then when you go over here, it says phone depth. I usually do 3. That means whatever list you have, you're going to see multiple phone numbers per person because it's a skip trace list, right? So it's not going to give you one phone number to be completely accurate. It's going to give you a bunch of phone numbers that might be associated with that person. And 9 times out of 10, I mean, KindSkip's really good. The first number that's on there is usually the number that works and it's correct. But if not, it gives you other numbers. So I would do phone number depth down to 3. That way I can call at least 3 of their phone numbers, and I would ring it for 15 seconds per. After that, I would continue. Oh, bear with me. It has holding music in case someone calls you back. And then I will go right into Excel. I would choose a file, and for this, I'm going to just put this one here. I'm going to put it out, and then I'm just going to fill this out, right? So I'm going to fill it out with the person's name. So I would do owner first name, owner last name, and I would do all this information here, and then I would put in the address. Make sure you do the property address and not the mailing address, right? So you don't want to be the mailing address. Since I only pulled one lead, I didn't pull anything else. It's not going to give me the property address. It's only going to populate as the mailing address because that's what PropStream would have it as. If you skip trace this, you would see the option to add it as add the property address, right? So add property address, not mailing address, because that's the property you're trying to call for. You don't want to sound like a scrub and call for somebody's private residence. If it's an investor, you're calling for an investment property, you want to make sure you say the property address. And then you can just skip all these other columns, and you can just click Start Import. When you click Start Import, it's going to import all your leads over, and then once you have a list that's ready to go, what you can do is you can go over. This is one of my ready to go lists, and you can start calling, right? So this is a new list we imported a little while ago. I don't think anyone call it. We had some people calling it, but I don't think there's any calls that were actually made. I think we're just messing around with it. But you'll see here that once you import a list, so for this list, for example, we had 7,600 leads, and then you can see all the leads that have come in here. We had 6,700 leads, 7,600 leads that came in, and we're going to start calling this list with our team, with Kai and with Chris. I know Chris sometimes hops in and calls, but we're going to having our people call this list on Monday and just start to hit it hard, right? And what it does, if you start a new call session, it'll call 4 numbers at once. So it'll ring 4 people at once, and whoever picks up first, it will then hang up the rest of them, and then it will cycle those other numbers that it called back. That way, it doesn't spam anybody, or it doesn't make them annoyed that you're calling from multiple different numbers. It rotates them back, and it'll call them later on in the day or the next day, which is nice. So once you do that, you start calling people. My best practices, get this open, start your call session, pull up your script, and this, sit here, listen to some background music. What I do, I put on some lo-fi beats. Just sit down and wait for someone to pick up, and then go through your spiel. And don't get me wrong, you're going to have to cold call a lot of people. A lot of people are going to tell you to fuck off or that stop calling me, take me off your list, all this stuff. It's fine. It's part of the business. It's part of the grind. Not everyone's going to say yes. You can go weeks without getting a yes, full transparency. But if you spend that time and you keep calling these leads and you like stay persistent, one day when you're feeling the most defeated, you're literally going to get somebody to be like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about selling. And then they're going to sell you their house. And and you're going to get your first deal. So cold calling is powerful. Door knocking is powerful. Driving for dollars is powerful. But this is a great way to cold call and just call lists and basically get a hold of people virtually. So I will take you back over to PropStream and we will finish off this recording there. So that is it. That's all I have for virtually wholesaling. I hope this was informative. I know this video is kind of all over the place, going back and forth between all the tabs, but I hope this gave you enough of a sense of what you need to do to begin virtually wholesaling if that is something you want to add into your business model. If you need any help, if you are virtually wholesaling, ask the community or DM myself or Chris. We're at a point now we are doing some wholesales in Florida. We're doing some wholesales in Rhode Island and Mass. So we're starting to expand out as well. So if you have any questions or you run into any hiccups, don't hesitate to reach out to us and we'll answer any questions that you have. We'll keep going. So thank you for sticking with me on this module 3.